So let's make a start by going to Slide Options, Manage Transitions, Create a Transition. I've already got a category that I've called Beckham Digital, so I'm going to put it in there. And I'll call this one Horizontal Flip. That'll do for our purposes here. We're going to make sure we stay with the global storage, but now we need to change this button here. We want multiple variants via buttons, and when we do so, the screen changes, and we're going to choose a preset. Let's select one of those. This one is going to meet our needs. Up, down, left, right. Let's select that, and what we need to do now is to decide where we're going to start. Let's start by going up, and when I click the up button, you see we get the opportunity to edit, and when I edit, we move into a familiar place. Let me drag that down to give us a little space to work. Now before we start, let's just remind ourselves that when we select slide 1 from the bottom right and the first keyframe, it should be fully on screen. When we select slide 2 and its second keyframe, that should be fully on screen. So we know where the start and the end is. We also need to remember that we do have a custom transition in here as a demonstration. We saw it with the single variant. So if I go to the second keyframe of slide 1, I can remove it by double clicking the Y. Now I'm going to need 4 more copies of slide 1. I'm going to hit Ctrl C to copy that. Click inside to lose any selections so that I'm not going to make a parent and child, and hit Ctrl V, and I'm going to do that a number of times until I've got 5 slide 1s. Now that we've got 5 versions of slide 1, we need to select the first keyframe, we need to go to our properties, and we need to tick the box to crop the image, and you can see we're working with a percentage measurement. Looking down at my little spreadsheet chart, the first section needs to be cropped 80 from the right, 80%. PicturesToExe places that in the center of the frame. We really need to move this section to the left, and when we cut the next one, we'll need to move that to butt onto that, and so on. But we don't want to have to keep going from this tab to the animation tab and back again. So let's do all of the cropping, even though the screen will look a little bit odd when we complete that. So I need to go to slide 2, and I need to tick the image crop. A quick glance at my chart is 60-20. So 60 right and 20 left. Number 3 is next, and that's 40-40. 40 right and 40 left. The next one is 20-60. Tick the box, 20 right, 60 left, and finally this one is just 80 left. And you can see what I mean by doing this without moving them. We have all 5 copies of slide 1, but they're all stacked on top of one another. So what we need to do next is to spread them out. So I'm going to select back to slide 1, go to my animation tab, and then a glance down at my little chart again says that to get the first piece over on the left hand side, I need -80 in here. And there you see it jumps over to the left. The next piece needs -40. And you can see how creating this little chart does make life a little bit easier. Slide 1 just happens to be the center one, and we don't need to change anything there. But now we have to start thinking about going the other way. When we get to image 4 or section 4, we need a positive value up here, but now that positive value is 40, leaving us the positive value for the last piece, 80. There we have our image back in place, but in sections. If I come back to slide 1, with the first keyframe selected, everything looks good. But of course, if I go to the second keyframe, we can see a bit of a problem. We've either got to go into the pan controls here and make the same adjustments we did here, but what we could do, if we hit Alt Insert and made a clone, we could remove that and drop that into that position. So it's 6 of one really and half a dozen of the other. But I need to do that for all of the remaining slides. So I can select the first keyframe, Alt Insert, get rid of the last one and drop this one into its place. And you can see now the second batch of keyframes are coming into place. And after all of that work, if I put my cursor at the front and press play, we've achieved absolutely nothing from an animation point of view. But of course, if we select all of these, we can see that each section of the image now is independent at the first keyframe and also at the second keyframe. So now we can think about what we want to do with these sections when we get to the second keyframe. Now, the change I'm going to input here is going to be the same for all of them. So perhaps I could hold the Control key and select all of the second keyframes together. Remember, a few moments ago we clicked the up arrow, so maybe if we go to the rotate command, the up arrow should mean it's rolling that way, and if we do a down arrow it comes this way. So what we want is a positive 180 here. So right click the X, positive 180. Please ignore the fact that the image is upside down, but we've completed the first section here because we've got the moving of all of the pieces. The only thing we need now is to stagger them very slightly. Now what we need to do next is a bit of trial and error, because what we don't want to happen is for all of them to rotate at the same time. We could have done that with just one single image. We're going to need to stagger these, but we're not entirely sure how much of a stagger we're going to need. So I think there's a degree of trial here. Let's put this to somewhere around 0.3. That one would need to be 0.6. Well, we can guess just by the gap. I don't think it's that crucial. And then we need to test it. Now that didn't look too bad, did it? But I think we need to apply the speed here so we get the feel for what that's going to do as well. We know how to do that. We select the first of the keyframes and we choose what we want to apply. What we've got to bear in mind here, of course, is the animation starts and ends on screen in our view. There's nothing going to be hidden here. So I think I'm going to go for the smooth option. So we need to go to the rotate option that we applied. We need to go to the add modifier and add smooth, but I do need to jump to every single one of these and do the same thing. And having done all 5 of those, I need to go back and just have a look. That doesn't look too bad. Remember, we're looking at the animation within a 2-second time span. When we apply this, it's probably going to look much nicer if we choose something like 4 seconds. What we need to do next then is to apply slide 2 to the other side of slide 1 in 5 sections. So let's go to slide 2, right click and choose copy. Then I'll go to slide 1, the piece that's on the extreme left side, highlight it, right click and paste. Because what I've pasted in there is a child of the parent. So this child is going to take on the same animation as slide 1 at the top of the stack. Now we can see we've got some issues to address here with slide 2, but they should be fairly logical. If we go to the properties, for example, and we go to the original or first keyframe, what we need to do is to tick the image crop and apply the same settings that we applied for slide 1. And if we look at our chart, it tells us we want 80% from the right. But if I ran my animation now, you're going to see slide 2 on both sides, so that's clearly wrong. So what we also need to do is to go over here and say don't show the front side. So when we run the animation, the flower image only shows on the back side. Yes, I'm well aware that the image is upside down here. What we'll do is make a change to that in a moment. What I need to do here is just repeat what I did before. Select slide 2. In fact, it may be better if I select this slide 2 because it's already got some of the settings in place. So let's go to right click and choose copy. Select the next slide one down, right click and paste. Now you can see straight away this one's come up slightly different because we're pasting the same details, but what we've got wrong here of course is the cropping values because we're working on number 2, which should be 60 and 20. And there we can see our picture beginning to form. I'm going to carry on and do the last 3 in exactly the same way. Now of course we don't have to worry about unticking the show front side because we're copying all of the settings currently in each of those slide 2s. Having done that, of course, if we press play we can see the results of our work so far, but we can also clearly see that the image is upside down. So if I select all of slide 2s, I could select all of those final keyframes, and now I can go to my animation tab and make a change to put the image back right. But a strange thing is going to happen. Having done all of that, if we press play, you can see we have a little bit of a problem here. Everything's working okay, but now we're seeing the second image upside down. So let's locate all of those slide 2s by selecting them with the Control key. When we do, if I go to the keyframes at the end, the way we need to correct this is to go to the animation and we need to put a value in the rotate X. -180 will do it. But now we've got all of slide 2 selected, but we can't see slide 2 and we should be able to. I'll show you what we need to do with that in a moment, but first of all let's go to the start because we need to start off the same way because now the image is on the back. So I also need a -180 there. Now there's a strange thing. Now we've gone back to the point where we can see slide 2 at the start and not at the end. Well, when you start working these things through and you start ticking the right boxes to get it to work right, once you start looking at adding an image on the reverse side, go back to your properties and the problem is going to be here. Because now if we untick show back side and choose show front side, let's have a look at that. Pressing play and we seem to have it sorted out. Once we've got it all working and we're happy that it's working fine, then we can close down the objects and animation screen. We can click OK and OK. And the first thing we need to do before we proceed is to have a look at what we've created and perhaps extend the transition time to maybe 4 seconds. So I'm going to select all the images there, go to my slide options, looking for Beckham Digital, there we have it, horizontal flip, I'm going to increase this to 3 seconds, I think, rather than 4, and click OK, and I think I'll increase the gap here to 10 so we get a good view of what's going ahead. So we need to make sure that everything is working according to plan, and we should see that a little bit more evidently now. We should be moving on to the balloon, and that looks okay. Actually, 3 seconds is not working too badly here. So everything seems to be working okay. So what we could do is move on and make some derivatives and apply them to those other buttons. But it may be worthwhile sitting on the custom transition that we've created here for a day or so, because it makes sense to make sure we're entirely happy with what we've done here before we move on. Having said that, let me demonstrate how it's actually done. If we go back to our slide options, locate the custom transition we've been working on, back to Manage Transitions, change transition settings, then I'm going to hit my up arrow, and where before we went to edit, what I'm going to do here is choose copy. I'm going to click the down arrow and choose paste, and once I've done that I'm going to click it again and edit it. Now I can make changes to my custom transition. I'm going to select slide 1, all 5 copies of it, holding the control key. I don't need to change anything here, but if I select all of those final keyframes, remember we chose a 180, so all I need to do is to right click the X and choose -180, and I've got the same transition, but it's now rolling towards me, or we can think of that perhaps as down rather than up. So here we can close the objects and animation screen, we can OK that, we can OK that. With a bit of luck, if I select this one and this one, we can go to our slide options, we can go to horizontal flip, and now we can choose the down option, and I'll stay with 3. Back to our car and press play. There we've got the down, and of course the original up version. Let's take a look at one more to bring this video to a close. Slide options, horizontal flip, manage the transitions, change them. The one I want to copy is the down one, so I'm going to copy that to the, let's go to this arrow, we'll roll backwards and we'll paste there. So now I can pick up that and edit it. Now when we do a test here, we've still got our down animation. We need to make a change. What I need to do is to select all of the slide ones. They've come up selected, that's a bit of luck. So I'm going to hold the control key and select the final keyframes, because now the rotate X isn't relevant. We can take that off by double clicking, because it's the Y we want, -180. But of course when we do that, it rather fouls up what we did with slide 2. But that shouldn't be too difficult to put right. We just need to select slide 2, all 5 copies, make sure we select all 5 of the second keyframes, and that also needs to be adjusted. We need to remove the X rotation because it's now not required, and we need to put it into here as a minus, but also we need to remember to do it at the front too. So I'm going to select all of the first keyframes because that also had a -180 which needs to be removed, and a -180 put there. Let's check to see if we've got this right. There we have it. Close down, OK, OK. There's 3 of them done. The 4th one, I'm sure, is going to be pretty easy. All we need to do is to reverse what we've just done, and we've got the rotation the other way. Now there's so little left to do here, I think we may as well go ahead and do it. So horizontal flip, manage transitions, change transitions. We've done this one, so if I copy that one and paste it to the right, and then edit that one, if I go to my slide 1 and all of the final keyframes, we just need to change this to a positive 180 and the slide 2's to a positive 180, and here as well keep it all uniform. A quick test from the start, and there we have it. What I've done here is apply one of each of those custom transitions from the balloon image for the next 4. So we should see the up option first, applied with that up arrow, then the down option, followed by the left one, and then of course the right one. There's our custom transition.